It's been almost 7 years since I delivered my baby alone on a hospital toilet. Here's where I am now. In March 2019, I was pregnant for the eighth time, and my baby was diagnosed with a cystic hygroma, which then turned out to be due to Down syndrome, and we made the heartbreaking decision to terminate my pregnancy for medical reasons. On the night before I was supposed to have my D&C, I delivered my baby alone. No one had warned me that the medication I was given could result in me delivering my 14-week-old baby. But this video is not really about how difficult that time was. This video is real talk about what growing around grief actually looks like. I promise you hope without any toxic positivity. In March 2019, I delivered baby Bryce whilst on the toilet, and I caught him in my hands. A few hours later, when I asked to see my baby, he was brought to me in a red medical waste bucket. In that in-between time, I was left alone and cold. It was quite a difficult night. After that whole experience, as a family, we made the decision that my husband was going to get a vasectomy, and that was the end of my fertility journey. 8 pregnancies, 2 children. I felt like I'd failed at the one thing I'd always been certain of. 2019 was a difficult year. I suffered from depression. I felt a lot of hatred towards my body. I spent a lot of time in therapy sessions talking about how much I hated my body and felt that it let me down. We had intimacy struggles. By the end of 2019, Brian still hadn't actually gone for the vasectomy, and we had an enormous fight. All of my abandonment fears had come up and grown through that anxiety. In January 2020, Brian had his vasectomy, and as you know, a few months later, the entire world locked down. I felt like I was at rock bottom. I was at the heaviest weight I'd ever been. I'd lost my sense of self completely. Who am I if I'm not trying to be a mom? Prior to that year, I'd spent probably the last 10 years trying to fall pregnant. I was running on fumes and my cup was bone dry. My business also exploded, and so I threw myself into that through 2020 and 2021, working long hours in the tech space where I could just focus on client work and not worry about what was going on in my own mind. But something changed. I continued with my therapy. I started the Baby Bryce Foundation in 2019 as well. It was an opportunity for me to create community and for me to give back in the name of my baby. I started a journaling practice, most specifically in 2021 when I went on a retreat called Finding Yourself in the Desert. It was a literal and metaphorical finding myself in the desert. I also started working with my midlife coach, and I did a bereavement doula training. And during that training, they asked us to name our babies. And I named all 6 of my pregnancy loss babies for the first time publicly. Through moving from focusing on my tech work into really moving into who it was that I was and what I wanted and what I needed, I did quite a lot of work around my grief. On Bryce's due date, we had a burning letters ritual as a family. We wrote letters to him and we burnt them so that the ashes and sparks could carry our words into the universe for our baby. Every year on the Wave of Light on the 15th of October, I recognize all of the babies who have gone before, and I speak their names: Betrayed, October, February, May, Sarah, and Bryce. I wear my special necklace that has white beads for the losses and rainbow beads for my living babies. And because we got it before Bryce came along, his charm has been added to that necklace. I started writing about my losses through an online blog in 2013. And in 2021, on that retreat, I started a journaling practice which carried on every single day for almost a year. In 2022, I realized that a lot of what I was journaling about could go down into a book, and I could help other people process their own grief through my story. I had published my book on my goals list for 3 years, and so at the beginning of 2025, I chose the word story as my word for the year. And on the 9th of October 2025, I published all of these lines. So where am I now? What's changed? In those 7 years since the darkest night, I have become a published author. I am an empowerment coach, supporting other lost parents after they've experienced pregnancy loss. I am a speaker. I've spoken at the TFMR conference. I have a talk coming up this week, and I'm building my portfolio. I have a YouTube channel, and I've been a podcast guest, both of which I'm looking to grow this year. I'm winding down on my tech work. I'm choosing me. In 2026, my word is me. I'm taking center stage like 8-year-old me absolutely loved. No more hiding in the wings for me. I'm focusing on what makes current me happy and fulfilled. And I'm looking at what 80-year-old me will look back on and go, wow, that's where we did well. But there's a lot that hasn't changed. I still check when I wipe every single time. Joys of perimenopause. I still have a tendency to catastrophize, something that came up from all of my losses. Perimenopause cycles are really triggering, trying to conceive memories and tracking everything. I still grieve. Grief doesn't disappear. Life grows around it. I still have hard days. We lost both my father-in-law and mother-in-law last year, and that has added fresh grief layers as I watch my husband grieve his parents. And I still have parental anxiety. What growing around grief actually looks like is that grief ball bounces less frantically. My life has grown around the grief, but also the grief isn't as achingly difficult to deal with every day. But there are times where it hits the pain button, and I am fully in that moment. I can hold joy and sadness simultaneously. I watched a beautiful reel where the lady explained it as braiding. My grief is braided into every joyful moment. Every sad moment, there are tinges of joy. And grief is braided into all of those emotions. Carl and Ayla bring so much joy, but the losses do still ache. Triggers still happen, but it's less often and less intensity. Anniversary dates are still hard. I have Bryce's anniversary coming up on the 19th of March. But now the bad days don't last as long. Here's what I want you to know. You don't get over grief. You don't have to. You can build a beautiful life whilst carrying loss. Healing isn't linear. Some days still suck, even 7 years later. Healing almost feels like a spiral. Some days you're closer and some days you're further away from the pain of the loss. Your grief is valid forever. There is no expiry date on grief. Grief is love with nowhere to go. And the only way that grief would expire would be if the love expired. And that's not an option for us. And you can laugh, create, thrive, and love deeply again. You are allowed to still be sad 7 years later. You are allowed to thrive whilst grieving. You're allowed to invent yourself after you've experienced loss. You're allowed to tell your story or not. It's entirely up to you. My angel babies made me who I am. I wouldn't be this coach, author, or advocate without them. Carl and Ayla have shaped my losses too. We talk about their angel siblings, and they're involved in the Wave of Light rituals. If you're in your early days, there is light ahead. A different life. It won't be back to normal, but you will start to feel more normal in the moments. If you're years out, you're not alone in still carrying this. My book tells the full story. The link is below. And if you need support finding your way forward, book a transform call. I look forward to supporting you.